And hello, keepers of the content. Hello, those carriers of the torch of knowledge inside of our organizations. We have so much influence over how knowledge moves in our organizations, and yet the nature of our entire existence is shifting right before our eyes. We have not the same stuff we are interacting with today that we did 10 years ago, and the stuff that we're interacting with in 10 years from now, this content, will be completely different than what we see today. And so we're going to walk through that process today and take a look at what that new order looks like. I'm Cruce Saunders. I'm a content engineer, and I love intelligent content. I'm also an introvert, and I love puppies. I started an organization called A. We publish a lot of content about intelligent content, and if you're interested in some of that, you can read the articles and materials on simpleA.com. Content moves around a lot. It is everything an organization is and does and knows, and it's valuable. It's what we grow from. And it's pretty powerful because it has a one-time cost of creation, but multiple channels of distribution and a potentially increasing return on investment. Those content assets that we spend all that time developing, as they increase in impressions, they decrease in effective cost. But we're evolving the channels that they are distributed to, which is increasing the value of those content assets as they reach more customers in more touch points. Those channels are increasing at an ever-expanding rate in tech comms and in marketing communications. We're going to talk about both technical communications and marketing communications today because those worlds are starting to come together, and we need to be conscious of that from the tech comms perspective. The devices from Amazon and Google and other providers, just in the last 2 months, and just with Amazon and Google alone, there's more than a dozen of them, and most of them are voice interfaces. So we're dealing with more and more interfaces that are conversational UIs, not traditional screen-driven user interactions, and certainly not on a desktop. Those experiences are starting to reduce the friction for customers. What do our customers really want from us? Do they want content? No. What they really need is to reduce the amount of effort that they're spending in their lives, because life is overwhelming and hard. And the companies that create low-effort experiences are the ones that are retaining customers. There's actually a study recently done where 23 times more likely to repurchase, customers who experience low effort are 23 times more likely to repurchase from an organization. 22 times the wallet share than high effort experiences. And content experiences that are high effort result in an 81 time higher incidence of negative word of mouth. So reducing the effort of content experiences is a key part of what our content does. Chatbots are going to help to smooth the process of evolving content. There's 85% that Gartner says of all customer service interactions will be powered by chatbots. That looks like something in the range of only 15% of interactions that will be without any kind of human in the loop. We do think humans will still be in the loop for some of that 85% or a good portion of it, but chatbots will be in the process. We've got several forms of what chatbots look like: text, voice, and avatar-based. But how do we get the content out to all of these channels? In the past, it was very easy. We typeset content and we published it in a single place, and we wrapped fish with it or kindling or recycled it. But then the web came along. It was a lot easier. We were able to put HTML up onto a server, and everybody could access it in a permanent state, and that exposed our content to a longevity and lots of customers over geographic, broad geographies. But then the landscape quickly evolved to lots of different kinds of digital consumption points. So now we're not only doing a web presentation that's coming from a CMS database of some kind, there's a structured content authoring piece tied in with an application layer that is helping to respond to multiple robotic consumers of content. These include Facebook, Siri, Alexa, Google, and schema.org, which you've heard a lot about, and just recently, is one of the ways we get content out to these environments. There's microdata in our content that gives all of those platforms a way to understand our content and represent it. AMP is another platform. Who's using AMP today in one way, shape, or form or another? Not much in the tech comms world. And we do see it in Marcoms a lot because this is a way for Google to present content out to mobile users dynamically. But we have to be able to interpret the content out to AMP formats to get there. But then we've got all of these internal applications. We're very familiar in tech comms with knowledge management, mobile applications, intranets, and syndication. So we've got to get content to these places. This is where we enter the content as a service environment or content API. We need to start moving our content towards content APIs, connecting that with the CMS, and ultimately delivering that content out to multiple endpoints in this published mode. There's another mode of content, and that other mode of content is interactive. That interactive content can be fed by that same content API and go out to multiple channels, including AR, VR, IoT, and ultimately to a chatbot platform. We need to be able to consume the content on a chatbot platform and push it out to Facebook Messenger, Slack, and other chat UIs, web interfaces and whatnot, but tie it together with all the things happening with natural language understanding, NLP, machine learning, and other kinds of cloud-based services for informing what's happening with our content interaction with customers. The chatbot platform can pull the content straight out of our CMS using that content API. There's another mode. It's automated mode. We are now creating experiences on the fly for customers. But this is entirely dependent upon context. Okay, content without context cannot create dynamic, rich customer experience. Context involves a CX database, some kind of awareness. We need to have the awareness of what users are doing with our content in real time. Organizations like Amazon are high up on this maturity curve. The rest of us are catching up. So we need to be able to take all of that CX data tied with what's happening with the content interactions and then be able to use that to generate personalized email campaigns and real-time personalization. So the promise of real-time personalization starts to happen when we're able to integrate this whole ecosystem of content interactions. This is the new content stack. And it's got 3 modes. And those modes are published, interactive, automated. So we are not just publishing one time, single render, right? We're now publishing into multiple modes. Our content is living in multiple modes at one time. Content is evolving fast, right? From 2D to 3D, static to dynamic, from resting to interacting, ultimately from cement to electricity, right? It's becoming there's a new physics that we're encountering with content. And we've heard some of that from Ray and Andy earlier with the Information 4.0. It's molecular, dynamic, offered, ubiquitous, profiled, and spontaneous. So content itself is moving into this Information 4.0 model. And Joe Gallner did a great job of analogizing that to kind of demonstrating how that fits into the way we're evolving as a species, we're evolving as a people, right? And our content is going to evolve with us. There's more and more destinations for assets. The CMS is the centerpiece, but all these delivery interactions are happening across a lot of environments, including ones far beyond tech comms. Okay? Tech comms lives in many of these, but we need to be able to converge the worlds. I'd like to introduce 2, let's call them asteroids. Okay, we've got two asteroids, the marketing communications asteroid and the technical communications asteroid. And both of them are kind of in their own orbits. They all involve their own worlds of concepts and technology stack. There's conferences like LavaCon dealing with MarTech, right? The MarTech world. And it's insane how many platforms that they keep up with. It's crazy. But they're all trying to move content around. And we've got a new point of gravity. And the new point of gravity is CX, customer experience. Customer experience in multiple endpoints. So we need to be able to get pre-sales content, marketing content, together with post-sales content. Because customers are looking at our post-sales content actively as a part of the pre-sales experience. And the whole thing is a customer experience, and it's now happening in conversational form and all over. That center of gravity is pulling together Marcom and TechCom and ultimately going to create a new whole. And we can call this Planet CX. So Planet CX is the place where Marcom and TechCom are meeting. But it's not the only silos that we need to bridge. We need to connect. We need to unify, right? We need to make out of many one. We need to make out of many one. Let's practice our Latin. E pluribus unum. Out of many one. Would anybody mind saying that with me? E pluribus unum. E pluribus unum. Wonderful. So we have a mess on our hands in reality, right? Like we go back to the office and it's a mess. There's tons of authoring platforms, there's tons of management platforms, and they're all being managed by separate teams and going out to separate publishing channels. There's no content intelligence system moving it all together. So for many companies, this content is unstructured and siloed at absolute best. So we need to move towards content intelligence. And this is the conveyance system that we heard about in the keynote this morning. There's a giant conveyance system for content. It involves authoring, management, and publishing. And we need to reduce the friction. Lean processes in manufacturing look with an engineering mindset at all of the points of friction inside of a business, inside of a manufacturing chain. And one by one, work through a rigorous process of reducing friction and creating a higher throughput of, in this case, content. So we are working towards this lean mindset. We do that through content engineering. We ask these kinds of questions. How does content transit from our CMS? How is the content model flexed to accommodate the targeting and reuse cases? How do we structure content for search impact? How do we tie related content together with taxonomy, like Joe Pearman was talking about earlier today? We have so many opportunities to reduce cut and paste and to maximize reuse. And yet we're doing so much cut and paste. I mean, my goodness. Our content must know more than what it looks like. It needs to know what it is and why it matters. We need contextual content. We have to reduce our latency, redundancy, and friction inside of our processes and increase the connections, consistency, and the coherence of our content in all of the repositories it touches. This is why we need a new order of content that starts with the model. And the model needs to exist independent of technology. And it then informs the authoring environments. It informs the management environments. And it informs the content API and all of the atomic points of delivery, those molecular interactions with our customers. So that model increases the content flow, increases the throughput along our content conveyance system. Okay? This gives us a way to amp up our return on investment. That gives us a way to get our content assets performing more in dollar terms on an asset basis. And this is why I'm looking for more and more ways we can figure out how content is performing as an asset, not as a page, not as a session, but as an asset, which has many views. Haven't cracked that nut yet. Looking for answers, if anybody has some. Content ROI emerges from content that's in motion. Content that flows between producers, humans, and robots. And content in motion is only the content that matters. We have to build towards an API, and therefore we have to build towards a model, and therefore we need a master content model. The master content model helps to orchestrate the content experiences that are happening across an entire organization. And we need to be working on a common set of sheet music. Because can you imagine everybody in the organization, on a large organization, trying to be an improvisational jazz musician with everybody else all of the time? And yet that's what most of our organizations are doing. Nobody has sheet music, right? And no of systems have sheet music. We need sheet music. We need a master content model. It opens up the ability for the systems to operate in multiple modes. We have to build that master content model first. It's a rallying point, and it creates efficiencies. It gives us a chance to make authoring, management, and delivery align through standard schemas. And this is where we focus on structure. There is a semantic tier to an intelligent content system. This is not it. The master content model is structural. And it can be personified in these ways. A content relationship diagram, actors, types, relationships that then get expressed in tabular form in content type definitions. There's a lot more to say about that. This is the content model structure. We need to incorporate lots and lots of pieces to this. Schema.org, search, discovery, mobile, and AMP. We're creating a content cake. These could be columns in a spreadsheet that looks like a model, where we're accommodating for all the different points of utilization that our content elements need to have across the broader ecosystem. So we have to consider these parts of our cake, these ingredients. But change happens one step at a time. It's a lot to take on, intelligent content systems. It's a lot. What matters is the next step, the next swing. That's the only thing we can do something about, is the next swing. So we need to start with a part of it. We cannot model all of our domains. Our organizations are too big and too complex. We have to pick one outcome, an integration point, a personalization scenario, and make that real. Model the system for that outcome, and then align the authoring systems for that outcome. The hardest part of an intelligent content initiative, as everybody knows, and that's the whole theme of LavaCon this year, it's brilliant on Jack's part, is that we're bridging silos. Organizational change is the hardest part of all of this. It's a human's challenge. Single source does not mean that we need to have a single authoring environment. This is a really important point, and I really hope we can understand this, that it is not a single, we don't need to get everything into a single content repository. Single source is single model. Single source is single model. One schema to rule them all. One model to rule them all. That is how we get to intelligent content. It's time to say no more to content silos. It is time to put our foot down and say, without a shared schema, we're not going to author in that new platform because we're creating long-term headaches. We must start with a master model, or at least a shared schema between two systems, so we don't have to copy-paste constantly and create these farms of people copying and paste. They never call it that, but that's what's happening, and it's time to get beyond that, from unstructured content to increasingly structured content. And the reason we need to do that is because it supports AI. Machine learning, with its inputs, its understanding, and its interactions, depends entirely on the rich beating heart of content. It all starts with the way structured content works. And so we need to be able to move our atomic bits through machine learning, and we can do that more easily if it is in a format that can be parsed as independent entities and not as one big NLP chunk. Structure supports omni-channel personalization. Omni-channel personalization literally cannot happen without structure. Structure supports chatbots. We have CMSs now which already contain questions and answers for so many customer intents. But we can use that and leverage it inside of our CMS. We've got the ability to move content in and out of this round trip of our chatbot workflow if it's autonomic. Structure supports teams. We believe there's a content strategist and a content engineer, and they work together in a broader team. Content can flow. AI will be the new UI. It already is. It's already there. We've seen the numbers. There's some amazing numbers that Zoomin was talking through a little bit earlier. We have a massive influx of new conversational UIs. We have a model that exists independent of technology, and we need to start with that model-first mindset. I'm Cruce Saunders with Simple A. Feel free to reach out to me. And E pluribus unum. Thank you.
I see people taking pictures of slides. All these slides are going to be available online after the conference, as well as the recordings from the live video sessions and all the breakouts. So those of you who are desperately trying to take pictures, relax. Now, what I found interesting is how so many of the topics that came